Hello, this is Dread, and in today's video topic is going to be the patch notes TLDR for Ancient Skies. Sit back, relax, get a cup of coffee. We're going to be here for a little bit. Now, when you complete Chapter 10, you'll get +1 on all attributes. That's really nice. It's a buff to Red Ring as well. You cannot get caves, the league mechanic for all of the beasts and stuff like that. Cannot get that if there's a tomb or cemetery there. So you'll probably have to farm either one. Like, it's not going to be that easy to farm both at the same time because of this. We're getting temporal keystones, which are pretty much just glyphs of envy. Glyphs of envy are getting reworked, but I didn't feel like mentioning it here because they kind of still suck. The first harbinger for the Forgotten Knights quest now always spawns in the first completed level 90 timeline. I don't know what this means for the getting to empowered monos or not. Maybe it means you don't have to do all three of them, maybe? Who knows? Who knows? Fix many common cases of minion snapshotting from items, hopefully most of them. All minions are more responsive at high movement speeds, reducing the instances of minions spinning around. That's nice. Summon Manifest Armor always had problems with that. Minions no longer sometimes run back and forth between a potential target and summoner. That's a good start. Minions will run in front of the player towards their destination. That was something that always bothered me when I was playing like minion builds where they would always like lag behind me. That's a very good change. They're buffing the dual wield node. We already know about this. Now we only take 8% more damage taken, but we also get a giant boost to attack and cast speed, which is beautiful. Void Well in Sentinels getting nerfed from 3 seconds to 4 seconds, the node that gives you mana based on your missing mana when you have 3 things. It's not completely killing it, so you can still keep using it. Nothing's dead in that regard. Mark of Rot got nerfed. It kind of deserved it on Anomaly. Hopefully one day they'll rework Anomaly. Erasing Strike. The no cooldown node in Erasing Strike now gives 20% less damage. So if you're spamming it like that, you get 20% less damage, bringing it more in parity with the big hit crit Erasing Strike setup. So those will be a lot closer to each other. Javelin. Time Rot Javelin is dead. Don't even think about it. It's dead now. Judgment. I specifically talked about this. You get less healing per consecrated ground when you can spam them with Urgent Inquisition. 50% less. That's a very fair nerf, mind you. That's a very fair nerf. They could have just removed it. Cleansing Light now has a trigger limit of 3 times per 10 seconds. This means that you can no longer continually cleanse Aberoth's frailty on you, which is going to make Judgment way slower at Uber Aberoth. Panacea grants Smite's healing chance to cleanse if it was directly cast from any cast. This means that cleansing is going to be way harder to get. They're trying to make it cleansing absurdly hard to get so that you have to interact with Aberoth's less damage taken and all that, which is annoying, but you know, whatever. Now for Rogue here, we get some damage over time leech at the top of Blade Dancer. This is actually one of the bigger problems with League starting like a Blade Dancer dot build. There was a lot of Falconer nerfs. I will not talk about them because I am not qualified to talk about them because I don't play Falconer and I probably won't play Falconer in the future. So, Dancing Strikes now gains increased cooldown recovery speed and more damage equal to 50% of your increased melee attack speed and more damage equal to your, yeah, whoa. That's a huge buff, by the way. For Dancing Strikes, maybe it'll actually be good. Who knows? It also got a damage effectiveness buff, which is pretty good. So maybe it'll actually be good. They made Synchronized Strike faster, apparently, which is cool. They completely nerf-a-doodled the Dust Shroud build. You no longer can get infinite amounts of damage. That is gone. Now you can only get a certain amount of more damage, a certain amount of more damage instead of infinite amounts more damage. At the base of Acolyte, they nerfed the ward on nearby death to be only 13 with a 10% chance. So This means that you can have a higher chance for it to proc, but way less ward per proc. Although it does give ward decay threshold. Interesting. Hull Lich has been moved to require Scornful Blood, and it gives you damage equal to your leech. I don't know if they changed it. They removed the leech thing, but it probably does. It's not very clarifying here. Probably still the same way as it was. So Hollow Lich is still alive, which means, the Flame Whip build is still alive. Reaper now has a 3-point threshold bonus, which grants 2 dodge per intelligence and 2% increased dodge rating per vitality. You can get a lot of intelligence on Acolyte, so flat dodge is always nice to have. This is very interesting. Soul Barrier has been moved to replace Life Barrier and reworked. When a hit you take leaves you at below half health, you gain 1 ward per uncapped poison resistance per point. This effect has a 6-second cooldown. We have precedence for effects like this because Mage has a very similar one, and that one's very strong. And you can probably get a lot of poison resistance. Obviously, not that much poison resistance, but even 1,000 poison resistance can make this into a very good node. But because Death Seal no longer removes ward, so you can have ward as an Acolyte again, or as a Lich again. This is really interesting. Spectral Wounds, which grants 2% of hit damage taken from bosses and rares dealt over 4 seconds. You can get up to 10% of this. We already know this is very strong because of all of the new items that came with these affixes, so this modifier is absurdly strong, especially on top of Lich, because Lich really liked the new gloves, so that can be insane. Decaying Form, 2% less poison damage taken, which is good. This is the poison chance node, by the way, I'm pretty sure. And it now has a 6-point threshold, which grants 50% of all damage over time taken as poison damage, which is very good because, you can use Aura of Decay and stuff like that, right? That's very nice. Clairvoyant Insight now has a 3-point threshold. It grants whenever you critically hit an enemy, you gain 25% of your critical strike multiplier as ward, max 3 times per 2 seconds. That can be 100 ward every single time you proc it easily. So it's 300 ward every 2 seconds, which is about 150 ward per second if you do it right. That's interesting, or even more, technically. Some Necromancer changes. Grave Thorns gives you some vitality, which is good because there's certain things that scale off vitality now. 2% increased minion armor per intelligence. That's a good start of making them tankier. And then 4% increased minion health per vitality. That's good because we're going to be stacking vitality as a necro now, if you're doing a damage over time necro. Life Drinker has been replaced with Soul Conduits, which grants plus 2 ward per second per active minion up to 20 minions. I believe that this is the node that has 5 points in it. So this can be 200 ward per second for playing a minion zoo build. So this is a very good benefit for doing so. That's a good start, right? You can get a lot of ward per second as an Acolyte now through a bunch of different sources, which is nice. Dark Retribution has been replaced with Invigorated Dead. A lot of plus melee physical damage and movement speed. Minion movement speed is amazing because making them go faster is great. And then your minions, there's the threshold where your minions gain added melee physical damage as throwing damages to make some skeletal rogues not garbage. At least their throwing damage abilities. That's really good because we were having problems with that because we're getting a lot more flat that wasn't applying to throwing attacks. Unbound Necromancy is a 5-point node that grants 8% chance to summon skeletons every 3 seconds on death. Its previous effect to +1 maximum skeletons is a 3-point bonus. This is absurdly strong. This is really good. You can get now to 100% chance per point, 100% chance to have summoned skeletons resummon. So you no longer have to summon skeletons if you do not want to, if you scale it properly and use a shield. You no longer have to actually summon the skeletons yourself. That is very good for a lot of different archetypes, so that's cool. Just having trash that resummons every so often is just a good start in the right direction. Now, the problem is, I looked through all of these patch notes and they haven't changed skeletons much at all, so they are just going to, recede into cannon fodder, unfortunately. Unearthed Arms allows your minions to leech, and this is generic leech. This is absurdly strong, as we've seen before. It's the whole reason using certain uniques is to make it so your minions can leech off their damage over time, which is now just a thing you can do, which is great. Uh, Base critical strike chance for minions at the top of the tree. This is really good as well, as you know, we weren't able to get this before. It helps out a lot. Now, Flay has a lot of stuff going on for it. I'll be honest, like I did point out everything here, but the problem is I'd rather just like go in game and talk about it and play it before, because like it's a lot of nodes. It's not really worth talking about now because we have no context for how any of this functions. So I'm going to skip Flay for now. We'll talk about that in a future date. Summon A-Bomb is getting mini rework. It's making it so that you cannot consume infinite minions for infinite damage anymore. That's gone. It will devour specific minions, so it can't like devour like the little shitty minions like parasites and stuff like that. That's cool. And it no longer decays over time at a base. Now, A-Bomb's basic attack is getting buffed by 50%. That's a good start. Stomp is getting buffed by like it's getting doubled in damage. Devouring Souls is getting doubled by doubled in damage. Sorry. Quicken the Dead, which is giving you more damage but reduce attack speed. This is actually a huge buff to in theory, Devouring Souls. Obviously, now I'm gonna say this. Everyone's gonna be like, well, it's not gonna do as much damage as before. I mean, yeah, no shit, Sherlock. Duh. Ding dongs. We're getting a lot of cooldown recovery speed for A-Bomb, and all of its abilities actually scale off a cooldown, apparently now. Even more cooldown recovery speed for A-Bomb. Like, that's nice. Frightful Feast. This is the devouring, this is like the projectile node inside Summon A-Bomb. So grants +1 soul per skeletal mage absorbed, but not scaling the allocated points. It now also grants 0.5 seconds minus cooldown for Devouring Souls, which is good, and 10% more damage for Devouring Swords per mage consumed. This is a huge buff to this node. This is a huge buff to this setup. This might actually be good again. We'll see. That's like 30%, like 150% more damage, less cooldown, and there's a bunch of cooldown recovery speed at the top. Like, this might end up making it not completely Papega. We will see. Hulking Mass has been replaced by Sharpened Bones. For each skeleton rogue absorbed, your A-Bomb gets 2% attack speed. For each skeletal warrior consumed, you get 1% more melee damage and 1% more health. And then for each skeletal archer, you get 3% increased area, max 4 points. So you can actually end up getting like 40% more melee damage easily for your summon A-Bomb, in theory, if you're just doing summon skeleton warriors, which is nice. Deadeye has been reworked. You can do like the Eternal Arrow. It's a lot better than I thought it was going to be, because before, this skill did not scale off of cooldown, but now it does scale off of cooldown. It was not very apparent in the teaser that it scales off of cooldown now, so it's a lot better, like a lot better. Like, if I actually do good damage. And Horrific Volley here, it gives you a Eternal Arrow has -25 seconds cooldown per point, which is good. I think it's 4 points. And for each skeletal archer absorbed, it has 25% recurve chance per point. That is absurd. That almost makes it good. This might actually be good, especially because of the cooldown. Especially because of the cooldown recovery speed scaling. Like this, it might actually be good, like legitimately good. So that's a good start. Spoils of War now grants Double Strike, which is a skill that did a decent amount of damage. It gives it 20% more damage per skeletal warrior. Okay, that might actually be good. And that also scales off a cooldown, if I'm not mistaken. Tower of Bones, it gives Stomp a -5 cooldown recovery speed per point, and then for each golem absorbed, you get 40% more damage and 30% increased area. You can get, like, I think 3 to 4 golems at most, so that's cool. I think 3 golems. I'm not entirely sure. I can't remember. So that's cool. You can get an Aura of Decay for your A-Bomb. I don't know if that's good. Aura of Decay got reworked a little bit. We've talked about this a little bit, but essentially, it got buffed at a base. You take less poison. You take less poison damage from all sources, but you take less poison damage from Ore of Decay itself, making it way easier to not die to it. Uh, you can no longer snapshot with Ore of Decay, which is amazing. Fucking finally. Uh, you can convert it to physical, and that less poison damage taken can be converted to less physical damage taken, which is absurd, right? Be converted to bleed. Defiling Nova. Incipient Decay has been reworked. Ore of Decay consumes 10 mana to emit a Defiling Nova every 15 seconds, as long as a boss or rare enemy is nearby. This effect has 2% increased frequency per 10% uncapped poison resistance, max 3 points. So if you have like 100%, or let's say like 500%, that's a fair amount, right? 500% times 6%, that's like 500 times like 6, it's like 3,000%. That no, it's per 10. No, it's like, so 500, that's like divided by, so it's 50 times 6, so it's 300%. So it would be like 7, then after that it would be like 4, and then it would be like 2 seconds every 2 seconds. Maybe that can be good, who knows. Defiling Nova, if I'm not mistaken, is the 500% poison chance effectiveness one, maybe. We'll see if that's good or not. Death Seal got completely reworked. It no longer gives you more damage. It gives you less damage taken while you have it on, and it gives 90% of hit damage dealt over 4 seconds. It is now a super chonk button. It is effectively more like a what do you call it? Like a rebuke kind of skill. It has a 10-second cooldown, even though it says it has a 12-second cooldown here. I'm going to assume that was like balance and stuff. It has a 10-second cooldown. Fair, because it makes you really tanky. No longer provides the more damage. It no longer removes ward, though, and does not prevent gaining ward, so you can be really tanky with this. So a lot of other changes to the tree haven't really happened, per se, but we do get to make it so we can reduce a wave we can release a wave of death whenever we reap or evade. That's really nice. That's interesting. That's really good for like cooldown recovery speed scaling. They did cap the more hit damage from dam stacks. That is very unfortunate for people who wanted to play that sup. That is very unfortunate. That build is pretty much dead in the water for the most part. Yeah, that's pretty much it for Death Seal. I went and looked through all the other nodes, and like there wasn't as much in comparison. Like that was pretty much it. Dreadshade here. Doomed Wrath removed. That's a 45% more damage modifier for A-Bomb. That's just been completely removed. That's very unfortunate. Egoism now requires Vial Gas instead of Pernicious Pact, meaning that you no longer stack a infinite amount of poisons on your minion. I don't know why Pernicious Pact is in the game now, considering like you can get to Egoism easier. Now, Egoism has been reworked. You only get like 10% base crit and 20% crit multi, but like that's enough to get started. And there's 5% base crit at the top of the tree. There's crit at the top of the tree. There's minion crit. It's no longer free. You can't just like slap Dreadshade on something and get auto crit, but it's like enough crit to make it not Pepega for the most part. To be honest, the thing that this nerfs the most is like Bone Golem, which is weird. Whatever, not a big deal, I guess. Spectral Distance has been reworked. That was like the inversion node that like made the AoE like inverted. It just gives you a bunch of area per active minion when it was cast. This is very strong. Dreadshade no longer has a duration, so when you cast it, it's pretty much there. This is very good if you're playing a bunch of different minions. Like that increased area is great. Doombrand was buffed to double its damage effectiveness. So that's cool. And it also increased the frequency of applying Doombrand. So we always get Doombrand whenever enemies die. And this is very interesting because of the skeletons resummoning and stuff like that, by the way. Added a node to lingering off of Lingering Doom, Wasted Essence. Affected minions deal 8% more damage over time, max 3 points. That's 24% more damage for ailment builds. That's very good. That's a good buff. Harvest got a mini rework. Intelligence now just gives you 4% increased damage instead of melee necrotic, but then dexterity gives you +2 melee necrotic scaling, which is interesting. It has 100% added damage effectiveness from 70 and also double damage versus cursed enemies. Finally, we live in a world where harvest makes sense. Beautiful. Harrowing Blade grants 25% necrotic resistance shred, and 10% more damage. More damage in Harvest is good because it makes it actually might do damage. Who knows? Mind Harvest gives you more damage. We don't care about the ward. That doesn't really matter. We care about the more damage. It's another more damage, like 18% more damage. We can convert Harvest to Cold, and it gives melee cold based on your dexterity. That's cool because you can run Morning Frost and get a bunch of dexterity and do it that way. I guess we're never going to get away from Morning Frost, are we? It doesn't seem like we are ever going to get away from Morning Frost. Ever. We're going to get 90% more damage from the ailment node, which is cool. You do have to use a bunch of unique ailments, though, to get that, but that's fine. Reaper form barely got touched? What do you mean literary work? Reaper form barely got touched. Reap is barely a skill. Like, okay. Wow. As you can see, I was very impressed with it. Wow. Great rework, guys. Great. Ooh. To be fair, everything else is pretty good. Like dual wielding axes and daggers and all that's good. Just like, really? Reaper? Like, you could have used this opportunity to like rework Reaper form. All right, whatever. It's not my game. Rip Blood. Rip Blood got reworked significantly. Instead of doing like one little hit, it does a hit in a line. And this means that you can also get multiple blood orbs per attack, which is very important for other things. Eviscerate has been removed. You can no longer get 2 blood splatters anymore, which is fine because you're mainly using that for area. You do get a little bit less hits on single target, but there are ways of making up for that. Splatter now has a chance of blood splatter. This node, it gives you just 1 extra splatter, and then enemies hit by Rip Blood can't be hit by blood splatter. It's the same thing as Upheaval. It just increases your line into like a kind of like a thicker line. It's not that good. It's like whatever. 10% more damage over time for Rip Blood just off the rip is nice because a lot of builds would use it for that. So here we get Marrow Shards, of course, when we cast Rip Blood. That's a huge buff that makes up for all of the nerfs to like all the other stuff. So that's cool. Coagulation is interesting because now you can get a bunch of blood orbs now because you can hit multiple enemies per cast. Is this good? No, but it's interesting. It is interesting. Blood Catalyst has been reworked. So pretty much instead of when you directly use Rip Blood and kill at least one enemy, Rip Blood will be reclassed at that enemy's position towards a target nearby enemy. The reason why this was reworked is because now it shoots in a line instead of just shooting once in like a small area. So, and these recasts can trigger the effect. So you can actually end up with a very big cascade of on death effects, which is cool. One of the problems is this no longer works on when you trigger Rip Blood from stuff like Bone Curse, but I did check the Bone Curse node that triggers Blood Curse when Bone Curse like turns off has not been removed. So that node is going to be insane for clearing. You will no longer get the on kill effect like this, but still, that's very cool. Like that could be very good. Arcane Absorption, like I said, was going to get nerfed. We only get a little bit of spell damage, but it is doubled for Rip Blood, so that's good. So Rip Blood still can do fine, but it's definitely less damage than before. There's a huge nerf to Ladle specifically here. Mana Feast, we only get a certain amount of mana. The reason why they're nerfing this is because on clear you can end up with like infinite mana, at least with the old blood orb stuff, because you can get so many blood orbs. So they reduced it for that, but then they tripled it for bosses and rare. So it's pretty much the same functionality as before. It's just like you're on clear, you don't get infinite amounts. They buffed Sacrifice's like added damage effectiveness, like doubled it. Okay. All right. Cool. I mean, that's fine. That makes up for all the other nerfs that they gave it. So cool. Mage here, a bunch of runic invocations. These aren't impactful at all. Runic invocations are still not impactful. I just simply wanted to like mention they changed them and it was very bad, like not good changes. They're just like mediocre changes. Like they need way bigger numbers than this to actually make them playable. I just wanted to point that out there. But to be honest, the biggest buff to Mage is the fact they didn't touch anything, to be honest with you. Like low key, like them not touching Sorcerer is like a bigger buff than like them trying to like change things. So maybe it's better they didn't change anything. Who knows? All right, Primal's got a bunch of changes, like a bunch of changes. Now, Aspect of the Boar gives you reduced damage taken, which I already gave you, and then increased bleed duration, which can scale with Aspect of the Boar effect. And you can also give your minions Aspect of the Boar, by the way. Aspect of the Shark gives you generic more melee damage and increased melee attack speed. This is a buff and a nerf. It is a side grade. It means that you still have to scale your own percent damage, but it ends up giving you more damage in the end, in theory, as long as you balance your buckets properly. Aspect of the Viper no longer gives you percent increase, but gives you 20% more. That 20% more damage is significantly stronger than that 100% increased damage over time. So Aspect of the Viper got giga buffed. Aspect of the Lynx, 5% base crit instead of 100% crit. That's a huge buff as well. Beastmaster here, generic minion damage leech. This is a huge buff to a lot of different minion setups. It's a very good way of keeping your minions alive. Like every single minion can survive way longer now because of this, which is good. And this is just generic as well, by the way. Boarheart has been reworked. You gain it whenever you use a traversal skill or evade, which is absurdly strong, by the way. That's very good. You also get endurance from it. That's good. Like that is good. You no longer have to wait for it on melee attack. That is like really, really good. This means that if you're like a Spriggan form, like Beastmaster, you can still get Aspect of the Boar. That's very nice. Physical penetration with bleed per point, right? With Tusk Warrior. And remember, this can be given to your companions, and also as well, like you get the bleed duration for Aspect of the Boar. Huge bleed buffs for minions, which is cool. Hunters of the Deep, 7% increased damage, companion damage, and then 2% shared elemental resistance. And then 3 point, you get your companions gain +1 spell damage per 3 points of strength. You can get a lot of strength as a Primalist. So that's a lot of flat damage for your summon crows and stuff like that. So that's a good start. This node here, it gives you a bunch of increased aspect duration, and then also as well, it makes it so that whenever you gain Aspect of the Shark or Aspect of the Boar, your minion gains it as well. This is very good. This means Aspect of the Boar can finally be given to your companions. That's a very good start. You can also give them all those bleed buffs as well, as we noted earlier. Here we can actually get another companion if we at least have 100 combined strength and dexterity. Like in total, you can have like 50 strength, 50 dexterity. That is very easy to come by, especially if you're scaling minions, right? So this means you can get a lot of minions. That is very good. Like that's extra companions is a very big buff to a lot of different builds. It makes up for the removal of the +1 companion from Summon Wolf, which I'll talk about later. So you can just have that +1 companion for Summon Storm Crows. Like there's a lot of different reasons this is good. Primal aspects have been reworked. It used to just give you a bunch of duration. Now it gives you a bunch of increased effective aspects on companions. So this is really strong with like, Aspect of the Viper, right? Stuff like that. And also gives you 10% of damage directed to your highest health minion. We already know that's very strong because of the chest. So that's cool. They nerfed Gathering Storm for absolutely no reason. Like they nerfed Excited Bolts, so you can't scale too much mana with like Tornado and stuff like that. But like, okay, I guess, whatever. Sure. It's like fine. All right. It's like nerfing Gathering Storm out of the blue, I guess. Why not? It's totally wasn't struggling. Another round of nerfs for Earthquake, not too much this time. The Serpent Strike build is dead. Rippin' pepperonis. Summon Bear had a lot of interesting stuff, but the specific thing that I cared about is it gives your minions 40% less damage taken per point for 6 seconds. That's good. That's a good start. That's 40% less damage taken is no joke. It will make your minions not completely fall over, which is cool. Summon Raptors getting a bunch of different like like different stuff. Summon Raptor is getting a huge buff, by the way. We're getting Rampage with 40% more damage instead of increased damage. As you know, that's probably really good, right? Also gives you 20% less damage taken when it's rampaging. We also have the fire conversion for Summon Raptor, and you can also refresh the fire breath when you rampage again. Like, that's all cool. Like, that's all very cool. I will play around with Summon Raptor. Summon Sabertooth. Now it's 36% more attack speed. Well, that's a huge buff. Snowstalker has been removed. It's okay because they re-added it later. I'm just dumb. Constitution, it just gives you a bunch of attack speed and more flurry swipe damage. That's good. Pounce has been replaced with destructive power. Your Sabertooth's attacks have a 5% chance per point to trigger upheaval. I'm going to assume when it attacks, it has a chance to cast upheaval, not that it has a chance on hit. Because if it was a chance on hit, that'd be pretty crazy. Upheaval cast this way uses your Sabertooth stats, but your upheaval tree. This chance is halved if upheaval creates multiple fault lines. That is really cool. Like, that is really cool. Like, that can end up making Summon Sabertooth really strong because of that. Like, Summon Sabertooth actually looks very strong next patch. Like, low-key, like, I'm not even joking. Even more damage buffs. Ancestral Hunter got changed. It's more of a side grade. This effect can only trigger 10 times per 5 seconds. So that's interesting from No Limit. But they added a node that can give you increased duration for your Sabertooths per point of attunement. So you have 100 attunement, right? That's 400% increased duration. I believe their current duration is like 4 or 5 seconds or something like that. So that's like, I don't know, like a 25-second duration. So you can end up with a lot of very permanent ancestral hunters. Because before, what would happen is you would summon a bunch of them and then they would disappear quickly. Now you just summon them and then they stay. That's going to end up being very good, by the way. Like, that's going to be a lot better. At least in my opinion. As you can see, I'm like, oh, because I'm like, why'd they nerf it? I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Rhymeheart has been reworked. You just get 8% more damage per second chill on the target. All right, cool, whatever. You can also get Melee Cold for your Sabertooth based on your dexterity. Interesting. Summon Scorpion got changed a little bit. Something very specific that's cool is they buffed the baby Scorpion rate. They also buffed, they also made a new node, Maelstrom, where you get a chance to cast Maelstrom on your Summon Scorpion, and it uses your Summon Scorpion stats. This could be good. We have done some math. It apparently can be good. We will see. Summon Storm Crows, the slight little nerf, but like, I'll be honest, the biggest nerf is the removal of the snapshotting, so who cares? They'll still be one of the biggest DPS outputs in the game for them. Summon Wolf, the +1 companion node inside of it, that was generic companion that I was talking about, it got replaced with permanent bond. You have an additional wolf companion at all times. This wolf does not count towards your companion limit. This is very good for minion zoo builds because you can have even more companions, right? So maybe this will be good. Who knows? It sounds good. It sounds good in theory. The only problem is I don't know how it interacts with solo companion stuff. Who knows? So we also have item affix balance and enemy balance. Added a new prefix for daggers, one-handed axes, and two-handed axes, which grants additional melee and necrotic spell damage. So for your harvest shenanigans. Huge swathing nerfs to Weaver's Idols. Very small changes, but nerfs. Just very small numerical nerfs. Chance on hit to summon Thorn Totem got nerfed. It got capped. You can no longer do the meme build. Thank God I played it this patch. Which is fine. This is actually better in general. Like, this is just actually better overall, in my opinion. It's just you can't do the meme build anymore. Resounding Idol, they changed the avalanche boulders to work like the aftershock idols, so they might actually be utilized now. Who knows? Clotho's Needle got a small smidgen of a nerf. Wrong Warp got a huge nerf. It went from 3% to 2% increased spell damage. And Mick the TV, thanks for the follow, by the way. The bigger nerf is It now has an effective legendary potential level from 48 to 70. That is a huge nerf. Viper Tail got nerfed for Time Rot builds. It no longer gives you an absurd amount of chance to slow on hit. Blood of the Exile got a small tap on the shoulder. You can no longer get to like 12 attributes on them anymore. Completely fair. It was completely busted before. Like, I'd rather them nerf this than all of the bleed stats on it and stuff like that in the movement speed, so I'm fine with that. Flames of Midnight, its penetration got nerfed. Unfortunate. It was kind of good with that. Like, it was kind of niche in my opinion, but whatever. Pearls of the Swine got buffed, a little bit more ward per second, which is cool. In my opinion, anyways. So this is at your post, makes it so that Kismet stacks only are consumed and you directly use a throwing attack. That's very important because there was a lot of problems where, like, you know, you would like do like shadow daggers and it would like automatically consume your Kismet stacks, and that's not what you want, right? You want to be able to like do a bunch of Kismet stacks and then throw out like a bunch of explosive traps, or then throw out a big like then throw out a big Umbral Blade or whatever, stuff like that. Another Vessel of Strife nerf. I haven't gotten to play with Vessel of Strife much. I guess it was really strong. Black Blade of Chaos got nerfed. No, not as much Time Rot on hit. A little bit less damage for the Time Rot builds. Slab now limits block chance to a maximum of 75% because people found out that you can use sets to get your block chance to 100% while also utilizing the slab. That no longer is a thing. You can only get up to 75%, which is, I'll be honest, still okay. Like, that's like Path of Exile block. Like, that's still very good. Like, that's still very good. Ashes of Mortality got nerfed to 2000 ward. I'll be honest, out of this entire patch notes, this has been one of the most good nerfs because I was kind of expecting this nerf for a long time now. 2000 ward is a completely acceptable amount of ward to nerf it to. Like, that is completely acceptable. Like, they were very favorable with this. They could have did it to 1000 ward. That was absurdly favorable. Like, sure, you can't get too much ward now with it, but like, did you really need that much ward? Like, it's nice to see that they didn't completely cuck the item. They buffed Circle of Fortune, guys. They increased the amount of favor you gain for joining Circle of Fortune to 500. It should now be enough to immediately buy your first prophecy. Oh my god. Yeah, we're playing Merchant's Guild. You can reforge class-specific idols at the Woven Enchanter. This means that pretty much you can re-roll the rolls at the Woven Enchanter. It is a way to re-roll your idols, the ones that you want. You no longer have to be farming for idols forever. You can simply have to just get the right affixes, and then you can re-roll it later. Absolutely amazing. Same thing with Weaver idols is very strong. Very good. Very, very good. Reforging a Weaver idol will reroll its affixes. At least one affix will always be a Weaver's affix, which is really good. That's really cool. And then increase the characters limit in the stash search box to 255. That's very good for searching your stash because they've been adding a bunch of like notation and stuff like that. Then fixed a bug where Blade Paladin node and Vengeance granted fire penetration per overcap fire resistance Time Rot instead of Ignite. Cool. And there's like a small bug fix for Shadow Cascade where it was getting a little bit of extra damage. But that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it for all the patches, patch stuff. With all that being said, this has been Dread. I'll have to go do something else. Bye.